afternoon. It's time for
tea.
Frankenstein tea. And if we ever had a Frankenstein tea that we have earned in a restful Friday, it's this one. It's been really busy here.
It's been really busy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had the spring fling.
We had a very successful spring fling. Thank you to everyone who came and supported.
We just had milk and cookies night last night, and I think they had like 50 kids or so who were there.
That was a crowd.
Yeah, 25, 30
That
appearance.
was a crowd with their pajamas on and
their
stuffies.
And a big thank you to our school principals who read last night, our guest readers. Yeah, it was a really fun event.
That was adorable.
So between those two events, we've had a lot of people here in the library.
Yeah, and I feel like there was more.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
There's always more.
Yeah. So we're ready for a nice, relaxing, quiet weekend. Yeah.
Well.
So as quiet as it gets, as it ever gets around here. So, welcome to Frankenstein Tea.
Yeah, welcome. Welcome to Frankenstein Tea. Frankenstein Tea, a weekly podcast produced here at the Aldrich, a update from the Aldrich, as well as a read aloud program. It's a read aloud program. You just asked me, should I read? And I said, we should read.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
we'll make it entertaining for you.
Yeah, we'll make it entertaining. We try.
We are here to entertain you.
Yes, and we're having tea, and mine is I should have drank mine about 20 minutes ago, but didn't. So it's a little cool.
Mine's Lady Grey, and it's also a little cool, but that's not bad because it's a beautiful day. The sun is shining.
Yeah.
It's just like a little bit of a taster of summer.
Mm.
And speaking of that,
out there, you think?
Yes.
Out there is a taster of summer. Yeah.
And speaking of that, if you're driving by today's Friday. If you're driving by the library, you may see some teens out there playing some lawn games. So there's a little taster of summer for them too.
Yeah, we're launching a new program today out there, a teen event, lawn games, and I think it's ice cream sandwiches.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
What are we doing in here?
Let's hope there's some left for us. Yeah, I think it's ice cream sandwiches and lawn games.
That sounds good.
Friday afternoon, 4 to 6. So, yeah.
Sounds like a great afternoon to me.
I think it's a great new program. I'm excited about it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So introductions. I'm Ian Gothier. I'm the children's librarian here.
And I'm Kristen. I'm the library director here at the Aldrich.
And Frankenstein Tea is something that we do on Fridays. It's a chance to kind of sit back and relax and enjoy some stories and some library updates. So
let's do an update about No Story Time.
Yes. So the next 2 Mondays, this next Monday, we're actually not going to be open because the staff will all be down at the Vermont Library Association Conference down in Killington doing some training. And it's very exciting because we actually haven't been able to do this for about 5 years because of the pandemic.
Pandemic.
So I think it was 2019 last time we did this. So it's going to be great, and we have a lot of new staff since that time. So this is really important.
We're bringing everyone.
Yeah,
we're bringing everyone. We're bringing everyone, and people are excited.
Yeah,
we just figured out the carpooling. We just figured out carpooling, so that's off our list.
Who knew you needed a staff meeting just to figure out carpooling?
Yeah, we just had it. Yeah, we had a mini meeting to do carpooling.
But so we'll be closed this next coming Monday because we'll all be down at that conference. So no story time, and then the following Monday we're closed for Memorial Day. So actually, our next story time, Monday story time, is going to be in June, the first Monday of June, and we're going to be starting out in Courier Park. People, they always look forward to this, doing it outside.
That is exciting.
As long as it doesn't rain. If it rains, we're going to be back in the Milne Community Room. But we bring the cushions up to the to the Courier Park, and that's where we do our stories. And it's really wonderful to do it out there.
Yeah.
It's really nice and quiet, usually, and it's nice to do things in the open air during the summer.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I love that. And so no story time on Monday, but the yoga.
We'll continue on Tuesdays.
We'll be on Tuesdays at 10:30, and so.
And that'll be in the Milne Community Room.
And that is in the Milne Community Room for the next 2 Mondays. Next 2 Tuesdays.
Yep.
While you're closed on Monday, people can feel free to come to. You can always come to yoga, but it's not a substitute, but it's something we're offering in case you're a Monday person and you're going to miss us.
Yeah.
Come on Tuesday. Check out my yoga program.
We do have the play group as well on Wednesday mornings.
Yep.
The nice thing about these 3 programs is that there's something for every kind of kid, really.
Yeah.
So there's a play group which is definitely for the younger kids who are very active. and then there's yoga,
Yeah.
and then there's our regular story time on Monday. So yeah, there's a little bit for everyone.
Yeah, but mix and match those.
Yeah,
you know, when
absolutely.
we're closed these next 2 Mondays, come check out. I totally encourage you to come check out the kid yoga. Let's see, I'll say a sentence about that. I am a certified kid yoga instructor. I was certified probably like 20 years ago, something like that. And I started doing, I could mark that time because I did it, I wanted to teach it at my kids' preschool. That's how I started. I wanted to, because I wasn't the library director, so I couldn't control the schedule or the programming.
How old is your kid now?
He's 20.
Oh,
That's
so
how
there
I
you
could
go.
mark
That's how you
this
know.
time,
Yeah.
And I think I started when he was like 4 or 5,
Yep,
so
yep.
15 years ago, and I got certified, and then I sort of worked my way into the preschool program in our town. And then I became the director, and then I got to move it to the library. So I've been doing it a long time, and although I was officially trained and certified, I have definitely made it my own program over these years. And our group is growing and enjoying it. Yeah.
It's a great time, so come and check it out the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Come in, and you can come at any time. It doesn't. We do something different every week. We do some things the same every week, which is really good for the kids, right? They like that to know a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know, it's also a time for them to be creative and to do their own thing. So I encourage everybody to come check that out. I heard this week that I have somebody who comes from like Marshfield for yoga story time, which is kind of far.
Well, yeah, it is.
It's kind of far.
Yeah.
So you know, if that says anything, people are traveling to come to our yoga time.
Oh,
so,
absolutely, yeah.
So definitely come join us. So we're doing that while we're away on these Mondays. What else are we doing? And I might move yoga story time to Courier Park as well.
Oh, yeah,
on
sure,
Tuesdays.
yeah.
But we'll see how those go. Not right now. We'll wait till June and follow Ian's lead on that.
Yeah, we'll see how things go.
Yeah. What else are we doing?
I think that's it for right now. We're going to be gearing up for the summer program, which is, you know, it's hard to believe, starts in about a little bit more than a month.
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say
yeah.
5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah. So in a couple of weeks, you know, I'll be doing a lot of school visits.
Yeah.
You know, getting people all geared up for the
summer reading.
For summer reading, for all the
Getting library cards to kids
getting the
before
library
we
cards,
lose track of them.
getting the word out, you know, about the free lunch program as well to kids once school ends. You know, if they're looking for a source for free lunch. Yep. Come on down to the library. So that is Monday through Friday. As soon as school gets out, we're going to be starting. So I believe that starts June 24th. Kids can come down and get lunch Monday through Friday, noon to 1. And that will be downstairs in the Mill Community Room or out on the front lawn, depending on the weather. So, yeah, and we'll have some really fun programs as well. We'll have crafting programs on the library lawn on Thursday mornings at 10. We'll continue having our story hours and our yoga story times, and playgroup continues all throughout the summer. So, gosh, there's something going on just about every day.
Every morning,
Yeah, so that'll be. Oh, and Fridays, select Fridays, we're going to have some movie nights, so we're playing that.
Right.
As well. That's exciting.
Right. That's exciting.
And we are planning to do some sort of little maker spaces, like youth maker spaces on Fridays, because we got some grant money for some really great devices for coding for kids. And for stop motion animation, so it's going to be kind of like almost like Full Steam Ahead Junior. So.
And we got the grant for the adventure backpacks.
Adventure backpacks, yeah.
That are going to be thematic, and you check them out as a whole unit, and the backpack will be loaded with books and
different
not activities, but different things.
Yeah. So the summer theme is find adventure at your library, or adventure begins at your library. So this is a good way.
I love that theme.
I love
gotta
that
tell
theme.
you,
There's so much you can do with
that.
that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
It's so true.
It's so true.
It's
Yeah,
so true.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is great. You know, you can check out a backpack and you can delve into different subjects of learning. You know, like geology and.
I think we did. I think we were some ideas.
Astronomy.
We had ideas of astronomy, backyard critters.
Yeah. There'll be more. Check it out.
Yeah,
Come and
bugs.
check it out.
Yeah, we had a couple of ideas. Let's see what we put together.
We'll see what we come up with.
Yeah.
But it should be a lot of fun. So yeah, it's going to be a really exciting summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. and there'll be some really great incentives, and we haven't figured out quite what we're going to do with the Smokey Bear Challenge, but this is the 80th anniversary of Smokey the Bear, so we're going to have some special challenges, probably with the activity bingo card involved with that, so check back with us in about a month. Yeah.
It's really such a, I always feel so lucky to work somewhere where I don't do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
I barely do the same thing every week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I pay the bills, so that's weekly, right? And you know, there are some things that I need to do every week, but it's such a great profession that we get to be creative,
Yeah.
Flexible, adaptive, you know, organic in that sense that that the needs change. You know, all everything that we do can be different.
They always say the saying is we wear many hats, right? Yeah, we're jugglers. We juggle many things. So
yeah, I was saying that to myself as I had to do some plumbing before the spring fling. I was like, boy,
yeah,
here I am.
Duties
Yeah.
as required.
As required. Doing some plumbing for spring fling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oof.
But I got out of that.
Yeah,
I got out of that. I got a good volunteer. Thank you to my volunteer. I'll keep you anonymous.
We take care of whatever comes out of the pipeline.
Yeah.
Whatever comes out of the pipeline.
Whatever comes out of the pipeline. But my volunteer showed up with much better wrenches than I had, and I very, very graciously backed away and was like, "Oh, thank you, thank you." Yeah.
Well, shout out to that volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a reminder of how much all the volunteers do here at the library to keep it going.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. When you start counting them up, how that affects our budget, right? What is savings?
Big time.
Yeah, big time. What is savings? You know, I sometimes we wonder how we make it on our budget. We run on a very strict, tight budget.
We do.
And I've been realizing lately that one of the reasons we're able to make it is because of our volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be 2 or 3 full-time jobs that we don't need to fill because we have volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have processing. You have volunteers. You had your great volunteer was there last night.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that Courtney? Is that
yes,
right?
Courtney. Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Courtney. Thanks for coming back. Yeah.
And our programming budget, a lot of people don't realize that comes from the Friends of the
From the
Library,
Friends,
you know?
yeah.
And so that's not from the library budget,
Right.
It's from the Friends of the Library.
Again, how we can make it, how the budget works.
Yeah.
Right? Such an integral part there, that the programming comes from the Friends.
Yeah.
Volunteers, the Friends, it all works together.
Yeah.
We're lucky that it does, but it's a trick. Talk about juggling.
Yeah, for
Woo,
sure.
talk about juggling, yeah. Speaking of which, let's do this one. May 31st, Friday night.
Yes, Rock City.
Rock City.
That's a great tie-in.
Yeah, Rock City. Sometimes I'm clever.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Rock City will be at the Elks Club. I point this way because that's where it is, to where we are, behind us there. Very, very excited that Rock City has chosen the children's program here at the Aldrich to be the recipient of the funds that evening. Very fun for us because we have a team of librarians going to work the door and hustle hustle those funds into our coffers for children's programming. Ian will talk a little bit about that programming at the event. I'll say hello and thanks for coming. And we get to go hear some music.
There's some wonderful music.
Music and raise some money and have a Friday night out together.
So so come on by. It's going to be a great time.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, did I tell? I don't think I told this story yet on Frankenstein Tea. They said, I heard you're the Rock City recipients. I said, yeah, we are. We're so excited. Small town, right? And I said, yeah, we're so excited. And they said to me, I didn't even know you needed money. And I thought, oh boy, change the messaging. Change the messaging, everybody, because we always need the money.
Libraries always need the money.
Libraries always need the money. Yeah.
We definitely do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So we'll change the messaging. We do need the money, and thank you, Rock City, for choosing us, and we'll be pushing that out and promoting it. But if you're listening now, mark your calendars. Don't miss it. It's going to be a fun night.
May 31st.
Yeah. Is that 7 to 9? I think we have to be there at 6. That's why I think
it's 7. So I think it's 7. You're right.
I think it's at 7.
Yeah. So it should be a good time. And thank you to our volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to our volunteers and
Well,
to our friends.
Yes, and to our friends. Well, shall we get down to some
Sure.
reading?
I think those
some
are our
entertainment?
updates. So
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Did we
Library
do it all
conference. I think so.
Yeah, we went through the
Yeah, we're
entire
pretty good.
list.
Yeah,
How
we're
about
pretty
that?
good.
Yeah. Well, you.
So what are you reading?
All right. Well,
What's happening?
we were discussing what we were going to do today, and we figured we would just kind of talk about
Yeah.
what we're reading right now.
What we're reading, and,
Yeah.
and we wanted to say thank you to our guests the last few weeks because we
Oh,
had such
yeah.
a great time with our guests.
Yes.
So it's just us today, and we thought, well, we're librarians. Let's talk about reading.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So I've been reading a couple things from the children's room, and I was inspired. I think maybe about a month and a half ago, we had a group here that came doing covers of Beatles songs.
Did you go to that?
I did.
At
It was
the Opera House?
amazing. It was fantastic.
Oh,
I really
I
enjoyed
wanted
it.
to bring my brother. I'm sorry I
And
didn't.
right around the same time, maybe like a couple months before, we had just gotten this new book in the children's room called This Boy, The Early Lives of John Lennon and Paul McCartney by Ilene Cooper. And middle school and high school, I was obsessed with the Beatles. My friends and I were obsessed with the Beatles. We still are, So I was really intrigued to give this a read, and I finally got around to reading it, and I loved it. It was really fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
I highly recommend it. It's so it is written for a middle grade audience, so it is very readable, and they do a really wonderful job in kind of delving into the family lives of John and Paul. John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and talking. They actually start with like their grandparents, so it's actually a little slow in the beginning, but once you get into it, you can't put it down. And you can really read it. It's a quick read. You can read it in 3 sittings, really.
Oh, that's nice.
But it talks a lot about how their family lives influenced their early emotional lives influenced their music. I had no idea that both John Lennon and Paul McCartney lost their mothers early on in their lives. Tragically, Paul McCartney's mother was, whose name was Mary. She was a midwife and a nurse, and she died of breast cancer.
Oh,
And back then,
painful, and you were a goner.
back then it was a death sentence. There was
Painful, and
nothing,
you were a goner.
really
Yeah.
nothing they could do about it,
Yeah.
So, and Paul McCartney is the composer of Let It Be. Mother Mary comes to me.
Yeah.
And you always think, it's the Virgin
Jesus,
Mary.
yeah.
But his mother
His
was
mother.
Mary. Yeah. So that's what a revelation, And John Lennon also lost his mother early on, and she was an amazing influence on him in his musical career. Both very musical parents, Paul's mom and his John's mother. And John's mother also died when he was a teenager, and so they had this same kind of bond over their grief over the loss of their mothers.
Yeah.
So, but those two are the big writing powerhouses of the Beatles. So, especially towards you get to the end of the book, talking about their writing together was very interesting. So, I think I'm going to share a little reading from that section towards the very end. So at this point, this is before they're the Beatles. They're the Quarrymen, which was the predecessor of the Beatles.
It's funny too because Barry and the Quarry.
Yes, and we've got a picture of the Quarrymen on the back. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a reading about John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and they had a very. You'll see that they had a very interesting dynamic. They very yin and yang, So yeah, and if there are any real Liverpudlians out there listening, I do apologize for my Liverpudlian accent. I will do my best. Okay, so this is from the chapter "The Long and Winding Road," and the name, incidentally, "This Boy," comes from one of the titles of the Beatles songs. Just grab a little tea here. The seating arrangement in the small McCartney living room made it necessary for the boys to sit on chairs opposite each other, practically nose to nose, as John put it. Because I was left-handed, when I looked at John, I would see almost a mirror image of myself, Paul remembered. They'd watch each other to see how they were playing the new chords they were learning. was quite a useful visual aid. It hadn't taken John and Paul long to discover how perfectly their voices meshed, with Paul's lighter voice taking the higher harmonies, and John's nasal and harder edge sound more suitable for the lower tones. But sounding good together was easy. Writing songs was harder. They soon decided the only way to do it was to start. Paul said, we'd sit down and say, okay, what are we going to do? And then we'd just start off strumming, and one or the other of us would kick off some kind of idea, and then we'd just develop and bounce off each other. Their first songs were their own takes on the rock music they were listening to. Buddy Holly was a particular inspiration because he was one singer who did write his own songs. He used only a few simple chords, which made it easier for John and Paul to try and emulate him. As they tried out different ideas, it quickly became clear that they would have to figure out a way to capture them on paper. Paul found a blue school exercise book, and on the first page he wrote, a Lennon McCartney original. As they wrote more during the fall of 1957, each page became another Lennon McCartney original. They had decided almost immediately that's how their songwriting credit would read. The letter L comes before M in the alphabet, so that was one reason for the order. But mostly it was because John was always first among equals. They scribbled down ideas and words, which they would then try to set to tunes. Back and forth, they bounced these elements between each other until something emerged that might be called a song. Since neither of them could read music and tape cassettes had not been invented, there was no real way to capture their musical efforts. They tried to indicate the melody by writing down the chords they played, but both of them decided that if they couldn't remember a song the next day, they'd chuck it, on the theory that if they couldn't remember it, there was no reason anyone else would. Isn't that great?
That's great.
They also agreed that even if they wrote songs individually, the music would be called Lennon-McCartney compositions. It was odd that two teens just starting to write, who had no immediate role models, would even think about who'd receive credit for their music. But this decision would have wide-ranging implications in the future when they became successful. Part of their reasoning was that even when writing alone, they always came to each other for suggestions, critiques, and encouragement. So almost every tune was touched by both of them. John and Paul loved the writing process. It was great, Paul recalled, because instead of looking into my own mind for a song, I could see John playing. Once again, Paul used the image of a mirror to capture the experience. It was as if he was holding a mirror to what I was doing. John remembered the excitement of finding the right hook that would make the song zing. And Paul hits this chord, and I turn to him and say, that's it, do that again. One of the most surprising things about their collaborations was how quickly they wrote. Since they only had a couple of hours alone at a time, they made sure to come up with something at each session. This practice of making the use of their time continued for years, long after they had plenty of time and space to write. Those around them were always amazed at how John and Paul could pick up their guitars, whether on a tour bus, in a hotel room, or just lounging about, and plow through until they had come up with a tune. Paul claimed in a letter he had written to get some publicity that he and John had written almost 100 songs. By the beginning of 1959, the actual number was closer to 15. For teenagers who couldn't properly write music, this was still an excellent output. And some good solid songs came out of that early collaboration. Among them were I Call Your Name, a bluesy tune that John started writing in his bedroom, The One After 909, one of their earliest efforts, about a young man who misses getting together with his girl because he's not sure which train she's on. I'll Follow the Sun, the song Paul wrote during looking out his living room window after a rainstorm. And Love Me Do, a joint effort that became one of the Beatles' earliest hits. The more comfortable they became writing together, the more things they found to write. For a brief time, they decided to write a play about a Jesus-like figure named Pilchard, who everyone keeps waiting for but never appears. They were excited by the idea, but quit a few pages in. We couldn't quite figure out how playwrights did it, Paul recalled later. Did they work it all out and work through the chapters, or did they just write a stream of consciousness like we were doing? So now I'm going to skip a little bit because we can't read everything. When John let Paul join the Quarrymen after the St. Peter's Fay, there was no doubt about who had the upper hand in their relationship. Even after they became famous, the idea that John was the leader of the group persisted. And in some ways, he was. But the dynamic between them was much more complicated. On a personal level, Paul had his own insights into the relationship. People always assumed that John was the hard-edged one and I was the soft-edged one. John, because of his upbringing and his unstable family life, had to be hard, witty, always ready for the cover-up. Whereas, with my rather comfortable upbringing, a lot of family, my surface grew to be easygoing. But we wouldn't have put up with each other if we each only had that surface. John had a lot to guard against, and it formed his personality. He was a very guarded person. I think that was the balance between us. John was caustic and witty out of necessity, and underneath, quite a warm character when you got to know him. I was the opposite, easygoing, friendly, but I could be tough if I needed to be. These contradictory aspects of their personalities were also a huge part of the creative relationship. The studio engineer who recorded the Beatles' biggest albums saw all their differences behind the glass of the recording studios. The list he compiled was long. Paul was meticulous, kept a neat notebook with lyric and chord changes, and was willing to put in long hours to perfect their music. John was rude, impatient, and chaotic, always looking for scraps of paper where he'd scribbled ideas. Surprisingly, though, where Paul would take offense at criticism, John was more thick-skinned and willing to hear what others had to say. Cynthia, that's John's first wife, articulated their musical differences with sharp insight. John needed Paul's attention to detail and persistence. Paul needed John's anarchic, lateral thinking. It was just this creative tension, a musical yin and yang, that resulted in such a great outpouring of songs. Both Paul and John talked for years afterwards about how they used their artistic differences as well as their competitive streaks to make their music better. One example is their song, Getting Better. Paul wrote the optimistic lines, "I've got to admit, it's getting better all the time." When John got hold of it, he immediately added the next harsher bit, "Can't get no worse." Paul praised this tweak as an example of something he couldn't ever have come up with by himself. When they did write separately, hearing what the other had accomplished was a spur. After hearing John's song, Strawberry Fields Forever, his homage to the Wilton orphanage where he played as a child, Paul came back with the whimsical Penny Lane. As these years passed, there was less of the nose-to-nose writing that once had been the norm. But working together on a song could often turn out brilliantly. One of those songs was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, written in 1966. The inspiration came from John and Cynthia's son, Julian, who was 4 years old at the time. He showed his father a drawing of a little girl floating through the sky, surrounded by lots of stars. And when asked what it was, Julian replied, "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." John was immediately taken with the title. Paul remembers how he showed up at John's house one day and John said, "Look at this great drawing Julian's done." The fanciful title immediately brought them back to stories like Through the Looking Glass and Wind in the Willows, and they decided to use that kind of imagery in the song. "I offered cellophane flowers and newspaper taxis," Paul said, and John replied with kaleidoscope eyes, "I remember which was which, because we traded words off each other as we always did." Perhaps it's best to let Paul have the final word on their relationship. The great thing about me and John is that it was me and John. End of story. Whereas everyone else can say, "Well, you know, he did this and so and so and so." The nice thing is I can actually think, come on, when we got in a little room, it was me and John sitting down. It was me and him who wrote it, not these other people who think they know about it. I must know better than them. I was the one in the room. Over the course of their songwriting life, John and Paul produced 300 Lennon and McCartney originals. They made music that has been a part of people's lives for more than 50 years with no signs of winding down. Their group, the Beatles, would be named the most influential band of all time, yet would never have achieved the fame it did if they hadn't been for Lennon McCartney creative alchemy, which made the whole so much greater than the sum of its individual parts. In the beginning, there were two boys growing up in war-scarred Liverpool, each pushed by family to make something respectable and proper of themselves. John Lennon and Paul McCartney came to have their own dreams, and with talent, persistence, hard work, and a little luck, those dreams came true in spectacular fashion, gracing the rest of us as well. Together, they made magic. Not a bad legacy for two lads from Liverpool. So there we go. But you know, this was such a great time for this to come out too, because this year the last Beatles recording
They put
came
something
out as
out.
well. So it was the recording that
Yeah.
John Lennon made shortly before his death.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the name of the song now off the top of my head.
No, but it's lovely.
It is really lovely.
It's lovely.
And due to the
AI.
yeah, Paul McCartney and the Beatles and sound engineers were able to take that recording of John Lennon and kind of go back and reverse engineer and release
Produce
one
a record.
more. Yeah. So
produce a song.
so it's a posthumous collaboration between Paul McCartney and John Lennon. After John's death.
Yeah.
So
That's nice.
I thought it was great that this came out this year, the same year as that was released. So
That was great.
yeah, wasn't it really
That was
fun?
great.
And
That was great.
I thought it was like a really good tie-in as well because talking about writing and also their literary influences and.
So I have a couple takeaways immediately.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, one is I know you and I have talked before about like synergy, this idea of like how do people find each other and become this creative animal that changes the world.
Yeah.
And that was what you just read.
Yes,
That
totally.
they found each other and I love, and so that's one thing, right?
Yes.
This idea of synergy and sometimes you fall in with people that you're able to spiral up.
Yeah.
And change the world.
And sometimes it doesn't mean that you see eye to eye all the time. Sometimes it's interesting how there's that kind of give and take, that push and pull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love and so the other thing that Ian and I often talk about is how we always pat each other on the back when we make it through something emotional without crying.
Right. Yes.
And that has a piece of that. That
it does.
when he says it was Paul and I in the room.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That is really wow. That's a heavy sentiment. That's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just us in the room, despite what the press is saying and the world is saying and all the women screaming for them
It's
and
just the two of them,
this is just Paul and I in the room. And then in the beginning when he says, and I don't even remember what he said there, but when he looked at him and he could see what he was saying.
Yes.
Or see what he was thinking, or see what does he say?
Well, so
he says I could look at Paul.
So I think I'm trying to remember. I think Paul was the left-handed one, so he's actually playing the guitar left-handed, and John's playing it right-handed. So actually,
They're mirroring
nose to nose, they're actually mirroring each other. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
message. That's
Yeah.
great.
And the fact that they both were fans of Lewis Carroll and through the looking glass,
Through the Looking
so
Glass,
there's a lot of mirror in that passage,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a really fun book, and she does, Ilene Cooper, the author, does go through and every once in a while, she says, if this didn't happen, just imagine if this didn't happen, then they wouldn't have met, or this wouldn't have happened. So there's a lot of what ifs there, and there is a kind of
back to this idea of how do people meet and do this? What is that fate?
And I love this last page too. I'll show this. This is the picture of the author actually at one of the Beatles concerts here in America. One of the first Beatles concerts.
That's great.
I think that's her. Right there.
I love
it.
That's great.
Yeah, the author sent her. Yeah. So, yeah.
Fun.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely. So it's obvious that, the Beatles had a great influence on her when she was growing up as well. So.
And still, I mean, I'm a commuter now, right? We were just talking about commuting. And
Yeah.
sometimes I catch the Beatles break.
Yeah, there
10
you go.
a.m.
Yeah.
Beatles break, and then in the afternoon, I don't usually catch that one because that's like 4 o'clock or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not commuting then. But I do catch that morning one, and it's always good.
And it is surprising. They're such earworms. They'll stick with you the entire day. Those
Yeah.
songs. So yeah,
They are so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you get a chance, This Boy, I highly recommend it.
On
It's a
our
good
shelf.
read. On our shelf.
Downstairs in your
children's room.
rooms.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Ilene Cooper.
Ilene Cooper.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Great.
Great.
Fantastic.
So fun.
All right.
So for me, a book. I am not reading something because I should be reading the book club book, which
We're still waiting for, right?
we
Oh,
checked
we
them
got
all
it.
out.
Oh, we checked them all out.
We
Yeah,
checked them
yeah.
all out. So
Well, that's good.
it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So people are reading it. It is called North Woods by Daniel Mason. I think I got that right. I think I do. It is North Woods, and it is Daniel Mason. And we'll try to get more. But you could probably buy this book and pass it along. It's on everybody's top 10 list. Everybody is loving it. I did not read it yet. It was a book, a group member recommendation, so I need to get a copy and read it. And we're going to talk about that book on Thursday the 30th at 5:30 p.m. So we have time to get it, but not much because it's a little thick.
Yeah.
So we have to get it. I printed, the New York Times did a book review on it. I'll just do the first paragraph. Daniel Mason's historical fictions, including his 22-story collection, brilliantly combine the granularity of realism with the timeless, shimmering allure of myth. His new novel, Northwoods, promises and delivers more of the same. Yeah, so really, really getting good reviews by people who are reading it. I don't have a copy of it, but we'll get more in. I'll read this from the New York Times Book Review. The secret of Northwoods, its blending of the comic and the sublime, lies in the way Mason, deftly toggling between the macro and micro, manages to do both. He not only acknowledges cosmic indifference, but celebrates it, even as he pauses to recognize the humans who experience jubilation and heartbreak as they wend their way toward oblivion. This is fiction that deals in minutes and in centuries, that captures the glory and the triviality of human lives, the forest and the trees. Mason keeps both in clear view with his eccentric and exhilarating novel. So, that is the book club pick for Thursday the 30th, and everyone is welcome to join us. All readers are welcome, all listeners are welcome. That is a very, very lovely book group that we're developing. That is no pressure. Come and join us, even if you haven't gotten a copy of the book and read it. But what I do want to read is a short story that the author wrote, and again, for copyright, I can't read the whole thing, and maybe because of time, but I do want to read a piece of it to you. So this is a short story, The Wolves of Circassia. It is by Daniel Mason. And it was online, but it is reprinted with the author's permission. So I don't have permission, but I'm just going to read a piece of it, and that should suffice. And I acknowledge that we're librarians and we share literature with you as a way to do reader's recommendation, and there is no monetary gain from this. So having said that, let's just do a little piece of this. May passed. The leaves grew thick on the walnuts, and green figs budded on the backyard tree. The valley bloomed with California poppy, then white flowers that reminded Simi of the morning glory she would pick in Tonga. And then, in thick patches, a small blue-violet blossom whose name she didn't know. The days turned warmer and her asthma flared, and she found herself needing to stop and rest on a long recumbent branch of laurel, behind a bench that had been wrapped with yellow warning tape. There, the signal was good, and she could listen to her daughter while the old man and the little boy continued along the trail 10-15 minutes to the gate at the end of the valley and back. Soon she unrolled a little blanket, took off her shoes, and massaged her feet. Fierce, bristling caterpillars stalked among the waving grass. Little black-caped birds warily inspected her, and a pair of mushrooms broke the hard clay earth, grew tall, and shriveled in the heat. In the distance, she could hear the boy shouting or singing, but there was no one nearby to admonish him. If she didn't worry about the old man, or his wife, or the little boy, or her son, or her husband, or her daughters, she realized she was almost happy. When the man and the boy would return, she'd find them talking about exactly the same things as when she'd left. Sometimes they were lost in conversation or in parallel worlds that didn't involve one another, but they didn't even seem to notice her waiting, and she had to hurry to catch them. Back at the house, the old man would nap and the boy would disappear into his Kindle. And after dinner, they would go out again, each day like the last, the time dissolving. Einthoven, Shumway, and magic portals until the June evening when Sini lay down beneath the laurel amid the garrulous company of the birds, and somehow, thoughts slowing in the dry golden heat, drifted off to sleep. She was awakened by the scuttling of a squirrel and a cool breeze rising through the valley. At first, she didn't know where she was and took a moment to register the laurel and the dimming sky. It wasn't the first time she'd fallen asleep there, but it was the deepest she'd slept in a long while. Deep enough to dream that she was back in Tonga, only now with the old man and the little boy. They were in the ocean, bobbing up and down as she was watching them from the shore. There was nothing unusual in this. Almost all her dreams were about caring for others, seeing them in danger, and trying, with legs that wouldn't move, a voice that couldn't cry for help, to save them. In this one, there was something beautiful about the way they floated in the swells, but the moment that she tried to reach them was the moment she awoke. She sat up. Dusk was falling. The birds had vanished. Her eyes followed the trail to the final turn before it disappeared behind the oaks, but it was empty. Slipping on her shoes, she stood and gathered the blanket. They must have passed her, as they often did, she thought, and with this thought she felt suddenly faint and wondered if she had stood up too quickly. There was no reason to worry, she told herself, but then her chest was very tight. Instinctively, she rummaged through her purse for her inhaler, until she recalled that with the pandemic, her pharmacy had been unable to refill her prescription. It was only 10 minutes back to the house, but with her shortening breath, she had to stop twice, and she reached the yard in darkness. Almost instantly, she knew they weren't home yet. Inside the house was too quiet, and the old man's hiking poles weren't resting against the stairs where he usually left them. The boy's father was at his laptop, and the old woman was upstairs, talking to one of two different book clubs that had gathered over the computer on certain evenings, though when Sini listened, she heard the old woman talking only about her husband. Sini thought of interrupting, of asking for help, and yet she knew that would mean admitting more than just a momentary lapse. It would mean renouncing a central premise that has sustained her, that the world was something that could be tended. She returned outside and went around to the front of the house. But the street was also empty, empty of the masked dog walkers. Even the neighbors' homes seemed abandoned. In her pocket, her phone buzzed, and she fumbled for it as if the person calling might have an answer for her predicament. But when she looked, she realized she had only imagined it. There was just the time and the lock screen photo of her middle daughter sticking out her tongue, a prank she played long ago when Sini was still learning to use the iPhone, but an image that, for so much carelessness and joy, she kept. Still holding her phone, she circled back to the yard and then beyond to the path as the view of the peak opened before her. She was walking faster now, down into the valley where she paused once more. Possibilities rose about her. Wolves pawed the fresh snow. Bodies broke through the wave curl between earth and sky. A magic portal opened. The world turned slowly around the axis of the mountain. Far away, her daughter was laughing again. A wind came over the hills, the trees, the valleys. Her lungs returned, and she began to run.
Lovely.
A little taste about Daniel Mason. That is not Northwoods, that is not the pick for the book club, but that is the author and a short story that was published by him.
A little taste of his prose and
a
his
little
style.
bit, bit about how he writes about nature, and generations.
Yes.
Definitely
Yes.
Northwoods is about, I think, several generations.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what the New York Times article said, this idea of trivial things
Yes.
and yet life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Trees and forests.
Trees
right?
and forests,
Yes.
yeah.
That was very well poetically said, trees and forests.
Yeah.
Like the details and then the big picture.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can find that online. You can read more of that yourself. You can come to book club. We will get more copies of the book in, I think. I hope.
Well,
I'll try.
it's still 2 weeks or so.
Still
until
2 weeks,
yeah.
right.
So should be fine.
Yep.
Yeah. So look out for that book here at the Aldrich Library.
Yeah.
Well, time for our mental check.
Oh, mental health
Mental
check-in.
health check-in, yeah?
Mental health check-in. Let's see. Have you eaten a good meal and drank enough water? Have you moved your body and exercised? Have you breathed in some fresh air and gotten outside? Are you thinking kind thoughts about yourself and others? Have you taken a shower and brushed your teeth?
Have you had enough water to drink today?
Have you had enough water to drink today? Have you talked to a friend or family member?
Mm-hmm. Have you read a good book?
Have you read a good book? Even a short story
Even a
counts.
short story, yes, absolutely.
Even a chapter counts.
Yep. Listen to a good song.
Listen to a good song.
Doesn't have to be the Beatles, but
so
a little good music.
We offer this mental health check-in as a way to just underline that we believe in a premise of no stigma, no shame, that mental health and physical health are connected and are equally important. There's you wouldn't be like, oh, I can't tell anyone I'm sick, I'm not going to go to the doctor. It's the same for your mental health, right? Like that we treat it the same, and we work that here at the library. So we offer that through this program as well. And I will say, this is something we did this week. We had the U.S. Congresswoman here.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we did.
We had Becca Ballot here doing her press conference, and it was about the MEND Act, which I think is mental health emergency needs during disasters, right? So it's this idea that she is funding a program where mental health teams will be dispatched to places that are in disasters, and there's an arc of healing for disasters, right? And it's 2 years, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's not like they come the day after the flood and leave.
So we are still like in the first year after the flood.
We are in the first year after the flood, and we know that. There's evidence of that everywhere we are. And so it would be this idea that mental health professionals would be available for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great to have in the library, because that is what we're working on and what we see. And I was able to go to her and say, thank you. It's not our training, but yet we're on the front lines of that.
Yeah.
And so when we offer this mental health check-in, it's what our skill set is. It's what we're able to do. And it's certainly and clearly no substitute for your doctor, your psychiatrist, your psychologist, your therapist, your medications, your routine, your schedule, your plan. Your mental health plan is not substituted by me saying here, hey, go take a shower, right?
Right.
But if it's a reminder, if it's helpful, we offer it to you.
Yeah.
And know that more help is coming.
Yeah.
Know that, this would be a great thing if this MEND Act passed.
Yeah. And I mean, libraries and mental health, I think they go hand in hand. Because,
Always.
Reading is oftentimes such an escape for people, and so very therapeutic and cathartic. It can be all of that. So it's very...
Yeah, one of my friends has a good tagline on their email that says, "We read to know we are not alone." You know, I think that
I
could
like
be
that.
Cicero. I'm not sure who that is, but
Oh yeah, that sounds like
it
yeah,
could be.
one of those classical authors.
Yeah. And so this idea, so not only is it an escape for you, but it's also like
Connection.
a connection.
You're not an island. No man is an
Yeah,
island. Yeah.
you are not suffering alone. What you have, other people have,
Yep.
are dealing with, have successfully dealt with.
Have dealt with before.
Yeah, you know, have a sense of hopelessness,
Yes.
hopefulness,
Yeah.
hopefulness,
Yes.
not hopelessness.
Yes.
Right? We want to combat the hopelessness with
Yeah,
some
yeah.
hopefulness. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Fantastic.
yeah. So enjoy your day, enjoy your afternoon. I'm gonna have more tea.
I'm gonna have a little bit more tea.
I'm gonna have a little more tea. We're gonna check on the lawn, see who's out there. Maybe
Yes.
get an ice cream sandwich.
Yes, and
We're gonna order more copies of Northwoods.
Northwoods, there we go. And so we hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your afternoon, the rest of your day,
And the weekend.
and the weekend. Enjoy a nice cup of tea.
Yep. A cuppa?
Yeah, a cuppa.
A cuppa?
Listen to a wonderful recording, some wonderful music,
Yeah.
or live music if you have a chance to do that. And until we see you next week, stay safe
Stay safe and
and keep reading.
Thanks
Yeah.
for coming.
Bye for now.
Bye.